extensible pretty fast, but one of the things that really was a strong selling point was the fact that it had lots of unit tests. This is a Log4j slide that's kind of, let's see if I can show you. So basically the idea is you have a logging object and it gets sent to an appender based on some level and filtering criteria, and then it gets put to some kind of output which is called an appender. All right, so these are the players. The log manager is the director. He's the guy you talk to. He also holds all the API. The logging event is the object. That's the thing that's going to get logged. A logger is really just a holder of appenders. And appenders can be thought of as output destinations. They can be sockets, files, the transcript, really anything you want. Levels are objects and they control what gets logged. We'll see that later on. And then filters allow you to further control the logging. Here's the simplest example. You say ES Log Manager, and you're going to create a logging event with a level of info and give it the message, I'm on. So as you can see here, we have a logging event is sent to a logger. The logger knows it has an appender. It sends it to the appender, and the appender prints or logs time out. Okay, so this is the logging event object. The most natural thing in it is of course the message, which is usually a string, but it can also be a block that will later evaluate to a string if you're crazy about speed. They're all logging events are time-stamped. They all have a level, which can also be thought of as a priority. And then there's some optional instance variables that are set based on the API used. We can capture the class name of the class where the logging event was created, the method name, and we capture the thread name. So we also have an object instance variable that can be anything you want. We'll go into that in a little bit. So loggers have case-sensitive names. They can have multiple, they can have one or more appenders. They can be created programmatically, although generally you talk to the log manager, have him create you one. And the logger named root always exists. In talking to Seth, who's used this in another life, he said that using the root logger was generally sufficient for his purposes, but you can get as crazy as you want. Okay, so here's a logger example. We have the logging, we're going to have the logging event, and it's going to come into a logger named Vast. Well, Vast here has a console appender and a file appender. So it's going to print hi mom on the console and also to a file. And this shows the different API where we're not talking to the root logger, we're talking to the logger named Vast. So the advantage of named loggers is, to be more specific, I'm developing some code in a particular area of the product, and I'm including some log manager debug and information, and I'm using it. The log messages that I'm generating are going to a logger named this application name. So, for instance, you could have a payroll logger, you could have a general ledger logger, and when you turn those guys on, stuff will come out. Okay, appenders have case-sensitive names. They have to belong to a logger. They all have a level, and it's actually the appender that decides if it's going to log the message based on the level of the appender. And you can also attach filters to appenders, which we'll get to. These are the appenders we currently have. You have the transcript, the console. We have socket appenders. I'll show you a slick example of that. And then we have a lot of files. We have a single file. You can roll the files by size, the same way that Linux syslogs do. And then you can also roll files by time of day. It's up to you. Okay, levels are actually objects. They actually have a level, which is an integer. They have a name, and I pulled across the syslog equivalent, which was in Log4j. That's not really used. So both logging events and appenders have levels, and this is how an appender decides if it will log a logging event. So an appender will only log logging events that have a level greater than or equal to their own level. example here. So there are 7 predefined levels going from all to off. Now you generally only instantiate logging events with debug through fatal. But you notice these numbers are quite widely separated, so you can stick in your own level objects if you wanted to. If you want to have one between debug and info, you could define this 15,000 and go on. So basically, if you have an appender that is of level warn, it will not log a logging event of level info or debug because they're too low. And that's as simple and as complex as it gets. Okay, so here's an example. We have the logging event hi mom that's sent to a logger, and the logging event is warn. And if we look back here, warn is greater than info. The appender has an info, and so we go through this decision logic here, and in this case, we will print. If this comparison works, we will do the logging, otherwise it just gets tossed. Okay, filters are applied after we do the level check. And what filters do is they allow you to check the contents of a logging event. And you can attach, well, we only have 3 kinds, but you can attach 1 or up to 3 to an appender, and filters are ANDed. So they all have to pass for the logging event to be logged. I'll have an example, I think, next. Okay, we have predefined filters. You can match the class name, the level. You can match a range of levels, say debug through warn. You can match on strings. The strings can be case or case insensitive, and all the filters can be set to not match. So you can say not match info. Okay, here's a filter example. Again, we have the warn logging event. We're going to send it to the log manager. The appender has an info, and so we're going to say it's warn greater than info. It passes that level check. Now it's saying we have a string match filter on Fred. So we're asking the message part of the logging event, which is hi mom, do you contain Fred? Well, it doesn't, so that gets tossed. Okay, the log manager, as I said, he's the director. There is a singleton of the class ES log manager, and this is the guy you can talk to, and he will create your loggers, appenders, logging events, and filters. Currently, there's a Log4s stanza in the INI file where you can find these things. There is also one of the settings in the INI file is a global level, and so actually the decision about logging, we first check the global level, and then we check the level of the appenders. So what this means is if you set the global level to off, you can turn off all your logging. Generally, you want to leave that to all, but you can change it. Let's get this right. Okay. Here are a couple of the APIs. The simplest one, you call ES Log Manager and you give him an info, debug, whatever, which says what kind of level this message is, and you give them a message. Or as I said before, you can talk to a named logger, and if you try to talk to a named logger called VAST and there isn't one that exists, nothing happens, so it won't break. You can say, and you can also set with this error location info API, you can set the class and method instance variables of the logging event. We call a method called self current class and method. And then if you say debug object you can put something into the object instance variable. Generally, you probably want to put self, but you can put anything in there you want. And then you can combine them all 3, and you can have fatal location info and object. So 3 different APIs. And these all exist for info, warn, all the various levels. Okay, so how we're going to specify what actually gets output. So each appender has to have a layout. A layout is generally going to be the class pattern layout or one of its subclasses. Currently, there is only the pattern layout. Log4j had an XML layout and an HTML layout. I did not convert those. I didn't really see the point. But the thing the pattern layout has is it has a pattern, which is a printf-like string that describes what should be output. The simplest one is you can just say %m, which means just log the logging event message. So let me see if I can do this. Alt 10. Bring up the image here, I'll show you. Let's see. Hey, you notice I have a legal copy of the software here. Okay, so if we look at, these are the pattern specifiers, and what happens, for instance, if you have an M pattern specifier, it actually calls a class that's a message pattern converter. So as the code picks apart these conversion specifiers in the string, it then sends the logging event to these different converters, and they essentially build up the string that's going to be output. Most of them simply return self, because they're pretty much already, let's see, they're already string-like. So I copy this. I'll show you one of them. Let's see, browse class. The date pattern converter, basically they all answer format : buffer : and what comes in is the string so far and the logging event, and so it does a bunch of stuff and then takes the string that comes in and adds the result of what goes on here. And the date is the one that does the most stuff, because there's 10 tons of date options. But that's the idea of these pattern converters. Those are actually a pretty clever idea. So let's see, let's go over here and kill that, and let's see, go back to, okay, back to PowerPoint. All right, and that mapping table in ES pattern parser class is where you specify which pattern specifier goes to what pattern converter, and again, it's extensible if you have your own particular. If you want a subclass logging event, add your own instance variable, you can put in here a pattern specifier and a class that handles it, and you're ready to go. That's pretty simple. The guys who did this did a nice job. Okay, the %O or %object specifier is used to do custom formatting of the object instance variable logging event. So what happens is when Log4s sees this %O, it asks the class that it asks the contents of the object instance variable in the logging event. Do you respond to the method print Log4s? Well, if it does, it goes ahead and executes that. Otherwise, it just executes print string. So I'll have an example of that. So you can do whatever you want in print Log4s, and you can have custom formatting. Now here's an actual example. Say you have a banking company that's required to keep monthly logs of all foreign transactions and weekly logs of foreign transactions greater than $1,000. So what we have, this is kind of what the ini file for that looks like. We create a logger BAS, and we have a daily rolling file appender. This is something that's going to roll over, actually it's going to roll over every month. We're going to write it to this file, and it's called foreign transactions. And then we're going to have big foreign transactions, and it's going to roll over every week, and it's going to be written to this file. And the pattern specifier that you see here, D, C, and O, will output the time, the logger name, and the transaction object. So here we're going to use the %O specifier. Now, if we define on transaction print Log4s, to say stream next put all, pay space next put all, you can't really see that. Yeah, self amount print string, then the code would look like this. You'd say log if needed. We'd ask if the transaction is foreign. If it's true, we will log the message foreign transaction at an info level, and this goes to the root logger because we didn't specify a logger. Then we'd say if the transaction amount is greater than $10,000, we'll send it to the big transaction file and warn that we have a large foreign transaction. And so what will happen is foreign transactions will have more information than will big foreign transactions. Well, they will both have the %O output that we define in print log4s. But the point here of this example is that you can have logging go to two different places of the same object. Okay, other formatting, %D will generally output the date in, I guess it's called ISO 86000, something like that. You can also put a lot of options inside the %D to do all kinds of formatting that you want. And you can do justification, left, right, minimum, maximum field widths. You can get as crazy as you want. These three entries are required in the log4s stanza. As I mentioned, the global level should generally be set to all, because this level is checked first before the appender checks the level of the logging event. So if you set global level to off, you will turn off all logging. If you leave debug enabled to true, then you will get some debug information sent to transcript TTY. And if you set quiet mode to true, that's wrong. If you set quiet mode to true, log4s won't complain at all. So, new in this release is an async appender. An async appender is not really an appender. You have a logger, and then you would attach an async appender to a logger, and then you would attach other appenders to the async appender. And all it is it holds on to the collection of appenders, and when it gets sent a message, it has a background task and a queue. So you send an async appender a message, it returns immediately to the calling program, and then in a background process does the logging. So for the speed freaks, this is the way you want to go. All right, here's an example of the async appender. And what do we have here? We have an async appender. And the other thing to notice is that the async appender has no level. The levels are down here. So we have a warn, logging event here. We have a warn, that works because warn equals warn. This does not work because warn is less than error. This does work because warn is greater than info. Yeah, this is an async file appender. This should actually say async console appender and an async rolling file appender. And next we will have an exciting demo. Everybody got a few questions? Yeah.
One question. Does the logger hold on to a handle on the file? And so even while it's logging, can you still open that file?
Okay, it's a good question. The file appenders are opened and they are left open. In other words, they're not opened, written to, and then closed.
Okay.
I mean, that could be made optional. I thought it was, a lot of work. When the image shuts down, or when you send the shutdown message, the code will attempt to gracefully close all loggers.
Okay, because I'd like to make sure of two things. One, that any changes, anything to log is written out immediately to disk, and not just buffered internally. So they should at least be flushed, I would think.
Well, there actually is a setting in the INI file, in the INI line for file appenders, that says if you want it buffered or you want it flushed immediately.
Okay.
So you can force that.
And then while the program is running, I still like to be able to look at the file and not have a write block on it.
I haven't tried that. I don't know. Yeah.
That's what I did in my screen test.
Well, there you go.
There, I have my answer.
Thank you, James. Yeah.
I didn't quite get like the previous slide. The previous slide.
The async appender?
Like the big buckets. So what do you mean? Like
It just gets thrown away. The big bucket means it goes off into space.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I thought everybody knew
Oh,
that.
circular file.
Yeah, it's the digital circular file. Okay, any other questions before we get to the exciting demo? Yeah.
Yeah, this is available in 8.5, is that right?
It was in 8.5.1, no, I'm sorry, it was in 8.5, and the async appender and some changes to the socket appender are in 8.5.1, which is coming out real soon, or is it out? It's out, I think.
It's not-
Okay, so if I have 803, then I'm gonna get this as an upgrade?
Yeah. Think so.
Just checking.
Yeah.
One more
We just
question.
got done.
Is there any handling for when the log file starts to get too large? Is there anything that says, well, let's cut it off at here, at this point, and open up a new file?
That's what the rolling file appender is.
Okay.
You specify a size and you specify how many versions. And when it gets, actually, when you say five, I have an example, it could be 5,000 bytes. As soon as it gets over 5,000, it'll close that, increment the file name, it'll do that 5 times, and then start writing over the initial one.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so enough of that. Let's see here. All right. See if I can squeeze this right here. So there are a ton of these examples in ES logging framework. I think it's NV, it's in the documentation. There's a whole bunch of these, I'll show you down here, these sample ini files, which just say, here's the code, the kind of code you need to write to, get out there. It should, for instance, do an async file appender. So there are lots of examples. I use them for testing. So let's go through a couple of them. This is just a little method I wrote that picks one of 4 messages based on some pseudo-random number, and then outputs a debug info, warn, fail, and we'll do some filtering. So the first one is we're just going to write to the transcript. Now, the reason we're only seeing hello world is that our pattern specifier only says %m. Well, we're going to change that. Pop this down here. It says -16m, so it's doing justification. Should stop after 30 seconds, I hope. Okay, we're all done. So now let's go come in here.
Don, go hatred to evil or something?
That's right. Okay, so now we're going to do %d. Anybody know what that's going to give us? D. Very good. It's always great when people are paying attention. And you can do all kinds of stuff with the date. How am I doing on time?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this transcript appender, this is where you specify what level we want to do. So let's say we just want to do info and above. So we'll put info here, and let's come over here and let's put in, well, you know, before we do that, let's do this. Let's do, oops, %m. Let's do this. Like this. So that's all right. So run this again. Oh, I did %m twice, reading the message twice. That's not very smart. I meant to do %p. Okay, let's do %p. Run this again. %p Okay, let's do two things. You can also put in this pattern string, you can put literals. Let's do that too. Okay, so %P added, told Log4s we wanted to have put the level, the name of the level too. And then stick in the brackets, just have to put stick. And then what we'll do next here is we'll change the level of this transcript appender to info. You can see here we're getting all four or five of the levels. So we'll do it to info, which will tell the transcript appender to only accept messages of info or above. All right. Okay, notice there's no debug there. So it's this easy. There's nothing more complicated than this. Let's see. So let's look at the %O now, which is the object. Let's do 20 seconds. 30 is too much excitement. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to output what's in the object instance variable. And what do we get? ES log manager. Because that's the print string of the class that is the contents of the object instance variable. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to come over here and we're going to say available. And looky here, we got a print Log4s method. Let's see what it says. It says Dan Ingalls. Let's load that addition. Okay, so now we have a print Log4s method on this ES log manager. So let's run this again. And there's Dan Ingalls. So again, you can put anything you want in print Log4s. If it's not there, nothing happens. Okay, I'll show you next some of the filters. Okay, what we're going to do here is we have a transcript appender, and then right here we have a level match filter that again is on the root logger, belongs to the transcript appender. It's got a name, and it says, I want you to match info. So this means only put out stuff that is info. Well, actually, let's go back here and make this all. Because we want the level check to let everything through, and then have the filter only let info through. And we're getting a different output because we have a different pattern string. The %O is over at the right instead of the left. Okay, now this is the reverse of that, which just says match everything except info. Let's see, okay, make this guy all. This won't be very good. So we get warn debug error with no info. And you can do range of levels or not. You can do class name or not. And then the other filter, which I'll show you here in just a minute, we can do string match. Now, again, as I said, if you have multiple filters on an appender, they all have to pass. There's no concept of OR. I think it could be done, but I'm not really sure. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to match messages that do include the case insensitive string H. Execute that. Not working too good. Yeah, it wouldn't be a demo if something didn't go wrong. Okay, I'm not sure why that didn't work, but we're going to truck on. And this is, now we're going to match logging events whose message does not include the case insensitive string mom. See if this works a little better than the last one did. Okay, so execute. There we go. So you get Go Patriots, Kent Beck, I love Smalltalk, but you won't get Hi Mom. And then we'll go on quickly to the file appenders. What, I got 10 minutes left?
Yeah.
Okay, so where's my, so we got the stick directory that's got nothing in it. Let's come here. This is here the file appender. We're going to write the stick log4s. And it's called test file appender. It's attached to the, oops, it's attached to the root. So let's just run this. A lot of downtime in this testing. And here we have this log4s log, and it's got this stuff in it. Okay? Let's kill that guy just for fun. Let's come back here and let's look at the rolling file appender. This guy is going to go to a rolling file appender. He's going to do it 500 bytes. The file size should be 500 bytes. He's going to do it 5 times before he goes back and starts writing over the original one. So let's do him. And there you can see he starts at a roll log4s.log, .log1, .log2, and then he'll go back and write over the previous one.
What's
Yeah.
the order of the log files then? The most recent one is log 1 all the time? Or
Yeah.
.log, then .log 1?
In this case, it depends. If log will get 500, log 1 through 5 will get 500, and then it'll go back and start writing over log again. So it's just like, so you'd have to look at the time date stamps or the contents to tell you which is the most
But
correct.
assuming there's no rollover, so that, assuming it didn't start at the beginning again, if it's just going forward, does it rename each of the ones that's there and then
It doesn't do renaming, it overwrites.
it overwrites? Okay.
Yeah, rename, I thought rename was too tricky, so I just overwrote it. I just opened them empty. Okay, here is a daily rolling file appender. A rolling file appender, it's gonna roll over the top of the minute. So for it to go to the top of the minute, we're gonna have to have this run probably 65 seconds. Let's do that. And we'll run this here. And this will create a file called roll log4s.log, and then it will put the time of the minute on the end of the next file. You can do these top of the minute, hour, noon and midnight, daily, weekly, monthly. I didn't do yearly, but that's an exercise left for the reader, or the programmer, whatever.
We could do monthly with a filter on January through November.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy who wrote this, I can't pronounce his name, did a pretty good job. It's nice and simple, pretty clean, extensible. And like I said, it had lots of unit tests, which were a big help, especially during the parsing of the pattern string and the dates. Okay, we should have two files here. We do. We got daily rolling file log, and we got log4s.log, and the date and time that rolled over. They all have, this stuff in it. Okay, two more, and we'll be done. We're going to do an async file appender, and there's really nothing different. Okay, here's the any file stuff. You create an async appender with a name, and you assign it to you attach it to the root logger, and then you create an async file appender, and you tell them here, I want you to be attached to the async appender called async appender. So there's not really a, let's see, let's make this 30. Let's make 15, it's not that exciting. And let's see, this is going to be called async log4s. Let's run him. Okay, let's take a look at, where'd that go? Oops. And there's our async log4s. Okay, for my last trick, I will show you how the socket appender works. So let's see, I'll move this over here. Move this over here. I'm going to fire up another image. Now, this code is taken straight from the documentation, and it just basically sets up a little listener. So I think we'll come back here. This is a socket appender, and we're just going to tell him that we want you to go to the address our local machine on port 443. And the thing we added in this particular release is a retry count and a retry number of seconds between retries. So in case your listener is not live when your image comes up, you'll sit here and retry. Okay, let's see if we can get this to work. Okay, he's sitting there listening. Let's see what this over here. So it's that simple. Any questions? Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, do you guys eat your own dog food with this at all? Do you use it during your development?
Like I said, I'm on this current piece of stuff I'm doing, I'm using it, yeah. It's useful for not only development, but we haven't talked about this in meetings, but my preference would be to have in crucial sections of the code at least debug, info, and warn, so that perhaps a customer calls up with a problem, we say, hey, turn on this logger, send us the output. It's all pretty it's pretty lightweight, so I don't think it would be a real cost. The short answer is yes, we plan to eat our own dog food. Okay, that is it. Oh, any more questions? That's all I had to show. Yeah.
We have about 3,000 users at our site. So if you found out that Turk is having a problem, would it be a way to turn the logger on just for that one person?
You could probably do it. You could probably do.
Actually, how do you turn it on? Through any file or?
Yeah, you can create all this stuff programmatically, but the easiest thing to do is to define it in the log4s stands of the any file for one person.
Which person is broken any file?
No, that's it.
You could do something in the INI file if they were unique to the person, or,
Well, I wonder if you could do this one. If you could have a database, initially has no entries, and the logger, when it comes up, if there's nobody in there, the flow is turned off.
yeah.
If there's somebody in there, and it matches that person, he turns it on.
Yeah, you could do, I mean, this is fairly easy to extend. You could do that kind of checking.
Because you don't want to turn it on for 3,000 people.
No, no. I hadn't thought about that, and I'm sure you could, I mean, it's Smalltalk, we can really do anything we want. Eric said self-brain surgery. Any other questions?